The rain had been falling since sunset, turning the narrow alley into a cold, wet tunnel of shadows. Water dripped from broken pipes and slid down the old brick walls like tears. The streetlights flickered again and again, fighting the darkness, but losing slowly. It was the kind of place most people avoided, especially at night. But tonight, two children stood in the middle of it, as if waiting for something, or running from something worse. A girl with long green hair sat quietly on the old stone steps of a closed shop. Her hair looked brighter than the rest of the alley, almost glowing under the weak lights. Her pointed ears twitched every time the rain changed its rhythm. She was not shivering, even though the air was freezing. She simply watched the falling rain, her eyes full of fear and calm at the same time. A small boy stood a few feet away from her. He looked younger, wearing a red raincoat and purple boots. His tiny hands clutched the edges of his coat, and his big eyes kept scanning the far end of the alley. He was breathing fast, like he had been running for a long time. His shoes made soft splashes on the wet ground as he slowly stepped closer to the girl. Behind them, the alley stretched into a long, dark path that disappeared into mist. Something about that darkness felt wrong. It wasn't just normal nighttime darkness, it felt alive, moving. A sudden gust of wind pushed cold rain into the children's faces. The boy flinched and turned sharply, staring at the far end of the alley. Is he still there?" he whispered, afraid to speak louder. The girl did not look back. She kept her gaze low, watching the rain hit the ground. "Yes," she whispered softly. "He is there. He's been following since the door opened." The boy's legs shook a little. He wrapped his arms around himself and stepped closer to the girl. "Why is he following us?" he asked. "Why won't he go away?" The girl finally lifted her head. Her green hair slid over her shoulders, and her glowing eyes looked calm but tired. "Because we came through the wrong way," she said. "We crossed when we should not have." She looked down again. "And now he wants to take us back." Another flicker of the streetlight made the shadows stretch across the alley like long dark hands reaching for the children. Far behind them, at the very end of the alley, a tall, thin figure stood under a broken lamp. Half of his body was hidden in darkness, but the part the children could see was enough to freeze their breath. He did not move. He only watched. The boy grabbed the girl's arm. "He's getting closer," he whispered, even though the figure had not taken a step. "No," the girl said softly. "He doesn't need to move. The rain carries him." As if responding to her words, the rain suddenly changed. The drops fell, faster and heavier, hitting the ground with loud splashes. The water in the alley began to move strangely, flowing toward the children even though the ground was flat. It felt as if the entire alley was trying to pull them back. The boy stepped back in fear, but the girl reached out and held his hand gently. "Don't run," she said. "If we run, the rain will follow harder. If we scream, he will come faster. We must be quiet." The boy nodded, trying to stay calm, though his heart pounded like a drum. The shadows grew longer. The air became colder. The tall figure tilted his head, watching them more closely now. Something big was coming, and the children knew. The real story was only beginning. The rain kept falling in steady lines, almost like silver threads dropping from the sky. The narrow alley looked quieter now, but the fear in the air had not faded. The boy in the red raincoat stood close too, the girl with green hair trying to calm his shaking hands. He had never met anyone like her before, and yet, something about her felt safer than the dark figure waiting at the end of the alley. The girl looked down at the puddles forming around her feet. She lifted one hand and let a few drops of rain fall onto her palm. The water swirled in a small circle, as if being pulled by an invisible force. The boy watched with wide eyes. "How did you do that?" he asked. The girl blinked slowly, her green lashes wet from the rain. "It is normal for me," she said. Water listens to me. It always has." The boy stepped back a little, not out of fear, but out of surprise. He had never seen magic in real life. "So, you're not human?" he whispered. The girl smiled softly, a small sad smile that looked older than her young face. "I am human," she said, "but not from this side." She pointed at the wet ground beneath them. "My home is not in this world." The boy frowned with confusion. He had learned about planets, galaxies, and stars at school. Was she talking about another planet, another dimension, or something else? He sat down beside her on the stone steps, ignoring the cold water soaking into his clothes. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl looked surprised by the question. No one had asked her that since she arrived. "My name is Lyra," she said quietly. "And mine is Evan," the boy said proudly. "I'm 8. How old are you?" Lyra took a moment before answering. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Time moves differently where I come from. I stopped counting." Evan nodded, even though he didn't understand. "Why were you sitting here alone?" he asked. Lyra lifted her chin, looking down the alley again. The tall shadow at the end of the alley had not moved. It simply waited. "I wasn't alone," she said. "I was hiding." Evan's eyes widened. "Hiding from him?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, the hunter." Evan shivered at the name. "Why does he want you?" Lyra looked at her glowing fingertips. A faint blue light pulsed under her skin. "Because I crossed the door without permission. I escaped my world when I wasn't supposed to." "Why?" Evan asked. "Did something bad happen?" Lyra lowered her head, and for a moment, she looked much smaller, like a lonely child lost in a grown-up problem. "My world is changing," she whispered. The sky turned black. The rivers turned still. People are being taken. She looked up at Evan. "I ran so I could find help." Evan stared at her, forgetting the rain, forgetting the dark alley, forgetting the hunter. "Help? From humans?" "No," Lyra answered. "From anyone who can see the truth." She looked deep into Evan's eyes. "Only certain humans can see me clearly. Most look at me and see nothing unusual. But you see everything." Evan felt his heart beat faster. "Why me?" Lyra touched a glowing mark on the wall beside them. Evan had thought it was graffiti, but now he realized it was some kind of symbol. A soft humming sound came from it when Lyra touched it. "Because you have the light," she said. "And the light opens doors." Evan didn't understand, but he didn't need to. He trusted her. Behind them, thunder rolled through the alley, deep and long. Lyra's ears twitched sharply. "The hunter is moving," she whispered. Evan grabbed her hand without thinking. For the first time, Lyra didn't look scared. She looked ready. The rain fell harder now, beating the ground like a warning drum. The alley felt tighter, as if the walls were slowly closing in. Evan held Lyra's hand tightly while she kept her glowing eyes fixed on the wall behind them. Strange symbols, curved lines, sharp angles, and tiny circles covered the bricks. Evan had seen them earlier but never thought they meant anything. Now they hummed with the soft blue light. Lyra moved closer to the wall. "This place is not just a normal alley," she whispered. "It is a crossing point. A bridge between worlds." Evan's mouth fell open. "A bridge? Like a portal?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. But only for those who can feel the light. Only a few humans ever notice it." She touched one of the glowing marks, and it buzzed like a tiny electric spark. Evan stepped forward. "Are these symbols from your world?" "Yes," she answered. "They are old words. Words of protection and warning." She placed her small glowing hand flat against the wall. The symbols lit up brighter, reflecting in the puddles on the ground. "These marks tell us when the door is safe to open, when the barrier is calm." Her voice softened. "But tonight, the marks are shaking. That means someone forced the door earlier. Evan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. That's someone. The hunter, Lyra nodded slowly. He comes from my world. He follows the light just like I do. But he uses it for something else, something dark. Evan turned and looked toward the far end of the alley. The tall shadow was closer now, though he still didn't walk. He simply floated forward like the rain carried him. Evan jumped. He moved again. Lyra grabbed his wrist before he could take a step back. Stay close, she whispered. Running will only make him faster. Evan swallowed, trying to be brave. What does he want? Why is he chasing us? Lyra hesitated. Rain dripped from her hair, shining like emerald strands. He hunts children who carry the light. Children like me. And now children like you. Evan froze. Me? But I'm normal. Lyra shook her head gently. No, you are not. You opened the cracked space between the worlds without even knowing. Only a light holder can do that. She stepped back and looked at him with soft eyes. When you entered the alley, you touched a symbol. Your hand left a faint glow. That glow opened the door. I did that? Evan whispered. Stunned. Lyra nodded. Yes, and that is why the hunter is here. The door opened without a guardian. Evan felt sick. So this is my fault? No, Lyra said quickly. You did not know. The symbols called to you. They sensed your power. He shook his head in disbelief. But I don't have any power. Lyra placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. A faint golden light shimmered under his shirt. Evan gasped. He hadn't even felt it there. You do, she said softly. Your heart carries it. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. The symbols on the wall flickered. Lyra's eyes widened. The door is waking again. Evan stepped back, nervous. Is it safe? Not anymore, she whispered. Someone is pushing from the other side. It could be another hunter, or something worse. The tremble grew stronger. The wall shifted. As if breathing, a thin line of white light cracked down the center of the bricks. The crack grew wider, glowing brighter, humming louder. The rain stopped for one silent second. Evan held his breath. Lyra's voice broke the silence. We must go before he reaches us. Evan turned. The hunter was now only 10 steps away. The wall split open. The door to the hidden world was waiting. The light from the cracked wall grew brighter, glowing like a rising moon trapped inside the bricks. The thin white line widened slowly, stretching from the wet ground to the broken pipes above. The humming sound became stronger, vibrating through the whole alley. Evan could feel it buzzing in his chest, like his heart was answering the light, but he did not dare move. Because the hunter was no longer far away, the tall figure now stood only a short distance from them, close enough that Evan could see the strange ripples in the air around him. The rain did not fall on the hunter. Instead, every drop curved away from him, as if afraid to touch his dark shape. His long coat dripped with shadows instead of water. His face was hidden beneath a dark hood, but something inside it glowed faintly like 2 cold blue flames. Evan's breath caught in his throat. Lyra, he's coming. Lyra did not turn around. She stared at the glowing door, her hand pressed firmly against the warm light. I know, she whispered. He crossed the alley faster than I expected. Evan glanced back at the hunter. The figure tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something only he could hear. Then he took one slow step forward. Evan's body froze. That single step made the entire alley go silent. No wind, no distant sounds. Only the soft, heavy noise of the hunter's shadow stretching closer. Why? Why does he move so slow? Evan whispered shakily. Lyra finally looked over her shoulder. Because he does not need to hurry. The rain helps him. The air helps him. Everything here bends for him. Evan swallowed hard, trying not to cry. What does he want from us? Lyra's glowing eyes softened. Not us, the light. She took his hand, squeezing it gently. And you have it too now. That is why we must go. Evan took a step toward her, but something sharp echoed behind him. Clink. He looked down. His purple boot had stepped on an old metal can, hidden under the water. The loud sound bounced through the alley like a broken bell. Lyra's eyes widened. Evan, don't. But it was too late. The hunter's head snapped toward them with unnatural speed. His hood shifted, and the blue flames inside it flared brighter. The air around him bent, pulling the shadows into long shaking lines. He began to move faster. Much faster. Evan screamed and grabbed Lyra's arm. He's running. Lyra spun back toward the glowing door. She pushed both hands against the crack in the wall. The door is almost open, just a little more. The alley shook violently, making water splash onto their legs. The crack widened with a tearing sound, and a white beam shot out, covering the ground in shimmering light. Behind them, the hunter's feet made no sound. But his presence pressed against the air, heavy and cold, like a storm pulling everything. Toward him, Lyra's voice shook. Evan, hold the door steady. Me? How? Evan cried. Touch the symbol. She shouted. Evan pressed his hand against a glowing mark. The moment his skin touched it, golden sparks burst out. The door responded, opening wider, letting out a warm breath of wind that smelled like forests and something ancient. Then a deep rumble came from the far end of the alley. The hunter was only a few steps away now. The blue flames in his hood brightened as he reached out a long shadowy hand toward the children. Lyra! Evan cried. Lyra grabbed his hand tightly. Jump! The door opened fully, spilling white light across the alley. The hunter lunged. Evan squeezed his eyes shut, and then everything exploded into bright color. The white light swallowed everything in a sudden burst, bright enough to wash away the dark alley, the broken pipes, the shaking walls, and even the rain. For a brief moment, Evan could not see or hear anything. It felt like he was floating in warm air, weightless and silent. His hands were squeezing Lyra's tightly, and he could feel her trembling, not from fear, but from the power rushing around. Then the world snapped back. Evan landed on something soft. It felt like grass but warmer, as if sunlight lived inside it. He opened his eyes slowly and gasped. The rain was gone. The cold air was gone. Even the alley was gone. He was in a new place, bright, glowing and strange in every direction. Tall, crystal trees rose from the ground, their branches shining with soft blue light. Floating lights like tiny stars drifted around them, humming gently as they moved. The sky above was not dark or bright. It looked like swirling paint, with colors changing every second. Blue melting into purple, gold turning into green, and soft pink spreading like morning clouds. Evan sat up quickly. Where are we? Lyra stood beside him, staring around with wide eyes. We made it, she whispered. This is Everdeep. My home. Evan stood slowly, trying to take in everything. The grass glowed soft green under his boots, and the air felt lighter, easier to breathe. Little creatures about the size of rabbits peeked from behind glowing rocks. Some had tiny wings. Others had fur that changed colors like the sky. It's beautiful, Evan said breathlessly. Lyra nodded, but her face was still tense. Everdeep is beautiful and dangerous. She turned her head sharply. We must not relax, Evan blinked. Why? The hunter can't come here, right? Lyra shook her head. He can. She pointed at a rippling light behind them, an open doorway still hanging in the air like a torn piece of reality. The door didn't close fast enough. He will follow. Evan's heart dropped. We didn't escape? We escaped the alley, Lyra said, but not him. A low vibration traveled through the ground. Evan felt it under his feet. The glowing grass dimmed for a moment, as if afraid. "What was that?" he whispered. Lyra's ears twitched. She reached out and took Evan's hand again, her fingers cold now. "That is Everdeep warning us. When the ground shakes, it means something powerful has crossed." Evan looked back at the doorway of light. It flickered like a candle in strong wind. For a moment, it turned dark around the edges. Then a shadow moved behind the light, long, thin, and unmistakable. Evan stepped back fast. "He's already coming." Lyra grabbed his wrist firmly. "We must go deeper into Everdeep. There are safe paths. There are guardians. But we must hurry." Evan nodded and followed her as she ran across the glowing field. Strange plants bent out of their way as if guiding them. A small glowing creature with 4 wings flew beside them, blinking softly before darting ahead. "What are these things?" Evan asked, amazed and terrified at the same time. "They are watchers," Lyra said. "They show safe directions." Evan looked back one last time. The door behind them cracked suddenly. A dark hand, long and shadowy, pushed through the glowing surface. Evan screamed, "He's coming through." Lyra tightened her grip and pulled him faster. "Do not stop. Do not look again." They ran past the crystal trees. The humming lights followed them like worried fireflies. The sky above changed colors faster now, as if warning them. The ground shook again, harder this time. Lyra whispered, "He is here." Evan felt cold fear crawl up his spine. The hunter had entered Everdeep. Their escape had only just begun. Evan and Lyra kept running until the glowing field behind them faded into a soft blur. The humming lights, the floating creatures, and the swirling sky all felt unreal to Evan, as if he had stepped inside a dream he couldn't wake from. But the fear in his chest reminded him this place was real. The hunter was real, and he was somewhere behind them. As they slowed down, the ground changed beneath their feet. The soft glowing grass turned into smooth crystal stones that gave off a calm blue light. Strange tall plants grew around them, shaped like glass feathers. Their tips sparkled like stars, lighting a path through the forest. Evan looked around with wide eyes. Is this still Everdeep?" "Yes," Lyra said quietly, "but this part is older. It listens to footsteps. We must be careful." Evan swallowed hard. "Will it tell the hunter where we are?" Lyra shook her head. "No, the forest knows I am from here, but it may not trust you yet." She looked at him with a small smile. "Stay beside me." Evan stayed close as they walked deeper into the glowing forest. Strange whispers drifted through the trees, not voices, but soft sounds like water singing. The air smelled like rain, mixed with flowers. Tiny glowing dots floated between the branches like living sparks. Evan touched one gently. It danced around his finger, leaving a trail of light. "Wow," he whispered. Lyra watched him closely. "They like you," she said, softly. "The lights only follow people who have a good heart." Evan blushed a little. "I'm not special, I'm just a kid." "No," Lyra said. "You are more than you think." Before Evan could ask what she meant, the ground trembled again softly, but enough to make the crystal trees shiver. The lights scattered like frightened birds. Evan grabbed Lyra's arm. "That's him, right?" Lyra's face grew serious. "Yes, the hunter has entered the forest." Evan's heart beat faster. "Can he find us easily?" "No," Lyra said, "not easily. But he is patient. He follows the scent of the light." Evan looked down at his chest where the faint golden glow had appeared earlier. "My light, it makes him follow me?" "It makes him follow both of us," Lyra said calmly. "But you are new to Everdeep. Your light is loud. He will hear it from far away." Evan felt panic rise, but Lyra gently held his hand. "Do not fear. The forest will help us hide." She led him toward a path that curved between 2 tall crystal trees. The branches above formed an arch, and soft mist drifted around their feet. But when Evan stepped forward, The mist suddenly brightened. Lyra stopped him at once. "Don't move," Evan froze. "What is it?" Lyra knelt and touched the glowing mist. "This is a boundary," she said. "Only children of Everdeep can walk through it safely. If a human steps inside without permission, the mist will trap them." Evan's face turned pale. "Trapped? Forever?" "No," Lyra said, "but long enough for the hunter to find you." Evan stepped back quickly. "Okay, then what do we do?" Lyra stood up, her glowing eyes shining with confidence. "You will walk through with me. Hold my hand and do not let go, no matter what." Evan nodded bravely. "I won't." Lyra took his hand and stepped into the mist. The bright glow wrapped around them like warm wind. The mist buzzed with power, but Lyra's presence kept it calm. Evan felt a soft pressure on his skin, as if the mist was trying to look inside him. He squeezed Lyra's hand tighter. The mist hesitated, then let them pass through. When they reached the other side, Lyra exhaled with relief. "Good. The forest accepts you." Evan smiled weakly. "That was scary." Lyra nodded. "It will get scarier soon." A loud crack echoed behind them, like a huge tree breaking. Evan spun around. "What was that?" Lyra's eyes widened. "He is getting closer." Faster than before. Evan felt his knees shake. "Why faster?" Lyra whispered only one chilling answer. "Because we are no longer the only ones he is hunting." The forest grew darker as Evan and Lyra moved deeper inside. The glowing trees dimmed one by one, as if they were hiding their light from something dangerous. A cold wind swept through the branches, shaking the crystal leaves and sending tiny sparks falling like snow. Evan held Lyra's hand tightly, trying not to panic. "Lyra, what did you mean?" Evan whispered. "What do you mean we're not the only ones he is hunting?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned the shadows carefully, ears twitching at every small sound. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but heavy with fear. "Everdeep is changing. Doors have opened in many places. Not just ours. Something old has awakened." "But why would hunters come after kids?" Evan asked. Lyra stopped walking. She turned to him slowly, her green hair glowing faintly in the dim light. "Because children carry new light, strong light. Light that can shape worlds." Evan shook his head. "I don't want to shape anything. I just want to go home." Lyra placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I know, but the light chose you." "Evan," she stepped closer and whispered, "and now Everdeep needs you." Before Evan could answer, the ground trembled violently, stronger than any shake before. Trees groaned as their crystal branches bent. The lights floating above scattered, fleeing into the dark sky. The air filled with a deep, distant roar. Evan felt the sound in his bones. What was that? Lyra grabbed his arm and pulled him behind a thick, glowing tree. "Be quiet," she whispered urgently. "Do not make a sound." Evan crouched beside her, shaking. They both peered around the side of the tree and froze out far behind them. A massive shape moved through the forest, darkening everything it passed. It wasn't the hunter. It was much larger, taller than the trees, with long limbs that scraped the ground. Its body looked like it was made of shifting shadows and rain, moving like a storm trapped inside a creature. Evan gasped softly. "Is that another hunter?" Lyra shook her head, eyes wide with dread. "No, that is a shadow titan. They only wake when Everdeep is close to breaking." A titan?" Evan whispered. "Yes," she said. "They are ancient guardians. But when they wake, it means danger is spreading everywhere." Evan turned to her quickly. "So they're here to protect us?" Lyra's face told the truth before her words did. "No, they destroy anything that carries strong light. To them, humans are threats." Evan's chest tightened with fear. "So, I'm a target too?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes." The titan let out another deep, shaking roar. The ground cracked where it stepped. The crystal trees shattered like glass. The hunter's familiar shadow also appeared in the distance, following silently behind the Titan like a loyal slave. Evan felt tears slip down his face. "We can't outrun both of them, Lyra. We're trapped." "No," Lyra whispered firmly. "Everdeep always offers one path. But we must find it before they find us." She grabbed his hand again and pulled him away from the destroyed part of the forest. They ran through tall glowing grass, trying to stay silent. Evan's legs burned, but he didn't stop. Not when he could hear the hunter's quiet footsteps. Not when he felt the Titan's roar shake the ground again. Not when he saw something even more terrifying. Upon he felt the Titan's roar shake the ground again. Huge shadow fell over them. Evan looked up and his mouth fell open. Standing in front of them was a creature neither hunter nor Titan. It had silver eyes, long horns like twisted branches, and a cloak made of shimmering mist. It towered over both children. Lyra stopped instantly. Her face went pale. "Evan," she whispered, "do not move. Do not speak. This is a gatekeeper." Gatekeeper?" Evan stuttered. Lyra nodded very slowly. "They are the oldest beings in Everdeep, and they do not like intruders." The gatekeeper leaned down, its silver eyes glowing brighter. A deep, echoing voice filled the forest. "Child of light, why have you come here?" Evan couldn't breathe. The gatekeeper lifted a giant hand and everything around them began to shake. Lyra stepped forward, trembling. "We had no choice," she whispered. "We were being hunted." The gatekeeper stared at Evan. "The hunters follow him," it said, "because he is the key." Evan's heart nearly stopped. "The key to what?" he whispered. The gatekeeper's eyes flashed like lightning. "The key to waking them all." The ground cracked beneath their feet, and the forest lights went out. To be continued.